Now, recently, Minister of Federal Capital Territory Nyesom Wike was accused by certain stakeholders of taking advantage of his official position to arbitrarily relocate landed property to his family and personal cronies within his jurisdiction of authority. In other words, the minister was being accused of indulging in land grabbing for selfish purposes. And that's a problem which has incidentally been on a rise in Nigeria's political capital. FCT minister's recent land reforms have been commended as bold and decisive. In the same breath that others are saying these so-called reforms are nothing short of one-sided, draconian exercise in authority, one that fails woefully in upholding the principles of equity, fairness and justice. Lawyer and human rights advocate Emmanuel Ikpebe joins us now to discuss this rising problem in the FCT and the role of the minister can play in addressing the menace. Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right, very good. So this issue of land grabbing and in some cases accusations about the minister's culpability, what are your thoughts here? You know, what's the red line in terms of what should be done and what shouldn't?
Well, thank you very much. I'm not going to go straight into the point that it is an issue to do with land grabbing, because whoever it is, the minister has allocated land to, be it his son, his cronies, his family members, his wife. They are all entitled to own land in Nigeria, being the fact that they are Nigerians. They can apply for like any other citizen and get land. But then, what is the process with which these lands have been taken from one party and given to, from party A and given to party B? Was there a revocation of the initial land? Was it that the person did not meet all the requirements to own that land, and then you take it and you give it to the next person? And the next person he's allocating to, how did he come about that he gave it to that person? Was there an application? Did he go through all the process for allocation before he did that? So if all these processes are not followed, then of course there will be a lot of hue and cry within the polity that land is being taken from A and given to B, and those people he's giving it to, why it is worse is because there is cronies. We see it in the news. He's allocated land to his son, he's allocated land to his wife. Those people are Nigerians. It's not a problem, but the process, was due process followed in allocating this land? That's the question people are asking, and that is why we're demanding answers for it.
Well, that's a great question that you just threw out there, and it makes sense that you're questioning the process. But in terms of the legal and institutional aspects, would you say that the existing legal framework has failed to prevent land grabbing, specifically in the FCT?
I wouldn't say exactly the existing framework has failed, because there's something about land in Nigeria. Land is, anybody who owns land in Nigeria is on a leasehold of 99 years. That is why you are issued a certificate of occupancy and not a certificate of ownership. You don't own land practically in Nigeria by virtue of the Land Use Act of 1978. You don't own land. You are on a lease for 99 years. So by the time you are given the land, you allocated the land. There are certain revenues you're supposed to pay, ground rent and the rest of that. So those frameworks are there. There are machineries for enforcing them. So if you have not paid ground rent for the past 5 years, does it warrant the fact that your land should be revoked? Or if the fact that you've not developed the land for, where those conditions, you've not developed the land or the land still is undeveloped, is it a ground for that land to be revoked and given to another person? Those questions are the questions we're supposed to ask, and those things are on ground. So if you are allocated land for that X number of years, is that a caveat or is there a proviso in your allocation that says you must develop it within a certain number of years? If that proviso is there and you've not developed, then the government can step into it. But if it's not there, then why go and revoke the land? Like a case in point is what was happening with the University of Abuja, where the land has been allocated from the inception of the university, I think in 1988 or so. And then now the minister is saying they have too much land. Maybe 11,000 square meters, or I can't remember, and he's taking about 7,000 square meters from it and saying they need 4,000. That is not supposed to be the case. It's an institutional land for Christ's sake, and so the institution is supposed to evolve into every aspect of what the land is. So coming back and saying that the land is not enough or they have too much land, I think that is a mere show of force. So it's not supposed to be the case at all. So the institutional frameworks are there. The laws governing the allocation, the continued leasehold, and the holding of the lands are there. And so if it's violated, yes, you have a right. But if it's not violated and you are revoking anybody's land, come out plain and let people understand that Party A, who was allocated land in this district, has not met the criteria for holding on to the land for the last 5 years. And based on that, we are revoking the land. Or he has to go further to do something to still own the land. But no, nothing. I don't know how they go about it. And then the next minute, you are revoking the land and hand it over to Party B. It is not, let me just put it straight, it doesn't follow the rules as it's supposed to be.
Very good. And of course, this issue has been going on for some time now, but I'd like your thoughts on the response of the FCT authorities on the scenario so far, because definitely there's been some complaints over this issue every now and then. And how transparent is the due process you alluded to earlier as well?
Okay, in answering your question, let me use the scenario of the parks and recreation, for instance. There was a notice that all parks in the FCT have been revoked. Reason being that a lot of those parks have veered out of their original allocation for using it for parks and recreation. They've entered several other issues that we're not using it for. Fantastic, it's okay. You want to look at it that way, but then what is the time frame you have given to the operators of these parks for them to reapply? What is the time frame for you to access before you now move into demolition? They've been on the parks maybe for 10 years. Who are those who have not complied with the rules as to allocation? And how do you do it? So you give them a notice. The notice started, I think, sometime in September when I saw the news. And then a popular park in Maitama, I think it was the Boulevard, and then Siam City Garden opposite the General Hospital was demolished. What was the length of the notice? And then what criteria did you give them at any point in time for them? What did you give them at any point in time to reapply so that they can either the land stays revoked or you reassign it to them? So I think it's a whole issue of something is not right, it's fishy, and then there's a lot of high-handedness going. So the FCT residents are going to cry, they're going to scream, and then people whose livelihood has been thrown out, particularly with the parks and recreation issue, they will still complain, because if you give them time, those of them who are wrong, you can go ahead, demolish them. Reallocate the parks to somebody else, but not when the time frame of what you're giving them is not done yet, and you move in and demolish it. No, that does not speak well for any leader at all.
Now, you've given us numerous scenarios of faulting the process, and also this Parks and Recreation example of not giving enough time. Now, if for those who have suffered from this land grabbing situation, if they wanted to seek redress in court or have their day in court or just be heard on the right process, what steps would you advise them to take in order to ensure that they get some form of compensation or justice?
Well, the best form is to go to court, seek redress, and if your land will be returned back to you, or maybe a reallocation done to you. But I am going to quote Professor Chidi Anslem Odinkalu in one of his write-ups, when the FCT minister revoked land given to beggar and then allocated it for building of houses for judges. And Professor Odinkalu was of the opinion that Julius Berger are going to be potential litigants before the courts. They are going to ask the court for redress, that their land was taken away from them. And who did you give the land to? The judges, to build houses for them. So apparently you've already compromised them. Even though it doesn't seem like you've done anything, you've compromised them, because if Julius Berger or whoever land was taken and given to those people come before those judges, how do you expect them to get redress? So the ordinary way for them to get redress is to go to court, ask questions in court, prove their case in court, and the land will maybe be returned to them or they be reallocated. But with the scenario I just painted, I don't know how exactly you want to look at it now.
Which also brings me to the question of statistics now regarding those probably who have genuine cases and have taken them to court. In terms of them having a breakthrough in court, how would you assess that? Have there been success cases, as it were, or is more of the negative scenario?
No. Of course, there have been a lot of success cases. Successful cases been tried in court. I've been a part of a lot of that as well. So I know that a lot of people, land has been returned to them, and successive governments in the FCT, if at the point you go to court and then, it takes a while before judgment will be delivered. And if at that point the land has been allocated to somebody else, I know for sure that successive governments in the FCT have relocated lands to some other person to say, okay, this plot of land that was taken away from you, you won in court. They are not even appealing the judgment. They'll take you to another plot of land, and what they say is that it should be commensurate in value. That has been done over time. So it is not as if the courts don't work. It's not as if the authorities do not hide their eyes from it. It's just the process in revoking and reallocating the land that we're questioning.
Oh, we'd like to thank you for your insight on this very crucial matter. Lawyer and human rights advocate Emmanuel Ikpebe, thank you so much for joining us here on Newsday.